Hey Stampers, this is Jeannie Moss. This is another in my series of the Butterfly Brilliance Collection class. I did a class and those who had purchased the Butterfly Brilliance Collection got the class for free. So we had 4 different projects. Some people couldn't attend that class, so I'm doing some quick videos on how to assemble these cards. So this is our second project. This is called a center panel easel card. So it opens in the center and then pops up to become an easel card. So this is what we're going to make now. When I gave everybody their packets, I asked them to cut out a set of butterflies. The butterflies, we had paper DSP with this collection, and the DSP is no longer available, but it actually, you could use one die to cut out all 6 of these beautiful butterflies. So that's what we were using in the class. I had them each cut out a set of the butterflies, and we're using those in the class. So this particular set class, we're going to be using this blue butterfly and the little pink butterfly. So those are the 2 we'll be using. And just hang on to the rest of those because we will be using those as well. The stamp set is one big stamp. So the butterflies are all on one huge stamp. And I would recommend that you put that on the Stamparatus because with it being such a large stamp, it can be difficult sometimes to get a good impression. So if you use the Stamparatus, you can ink it up and stamp. And if it doesn't cover well or you have some blank spots, you can re-ink it and stamp, and it'll be stamped in the exact same spot and get a good impression. So I recommend that. The stamp set as a bundle comes with dies, and this is the die I was telling you about. This die will cut out all of these butterflies in one shot. So with our paper that we had, we cut out all 6 of those butterflies with one pass through the Big Shot. It also comes with a smaller dies and a set of detailed dies. So these are the details. We also used this one in a previous project. We made a card with a window sheet. So this was our first project, and we used that black butterfly on the back of our window and our big yellow butterfly on the front. So with this card, let me show you the pieces that we'll be using. So we have a Misty Moonlight card base. This is 5.5 by 8.5, and we've scored it at 4 1/4. And the beauty of being on video is that you can pause this at any time that you need to back up a step or whatever you need to do. You can back it up, fast forward. It's totally up to you. All right, we have a basic white panel. This is 3 by 4 1/4. We have our DSP, and we're actually going to cut this together. I asked them to provide a piece of this DSP, and I wanted to be very specific when we cut this because this is like a rainbow of butterflies, and I wanted us to keep that rainbow effect on the card, so we'll cut that together. And then you'll have the scalloped circle and the stitched circle. And those are our focal point for the card. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to cut on the Misty Moonlight card. We're going to cut from the edge down to the score line. And we're going to cut it at 1 1/2 and at 4. So I'm going to put it in my cutter at 1 1/2 inches right here. And I'm going to take my blade and I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to have to stand up to do this. Line that little point up with the cut and cut. And then I'm going to go to 4 inches and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up with that score line and cut. So now what I have is this 3 panels. So that's the cutting for that. Our panel for the inside of the card is just going to be layered inside the card. It's got a little bit of a border at the top and bottom, and it overlaps. It goes out beyond those 2 cut marks. So as long as you're beyond the cut marks, it doesn't really matter exactly how. It doesn't have to be even because we're going to be covering that up anyway. And our next step, we are going to glue down these 2 outside flaps. And I recommend that you close this one because that will help you to line those up right next to that. So all I'm doing is I'm going to add some adhesive to this, and I'm going to close that panel and butt it right up next to that centerpiece. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So we are not adhering the centerpiece because that's going to be how our card opens. So these 2 outside pieces are glued down. Then we're opening up, and this we will just fold into that score line and use your bone folder and just burnish that. And this is the basics of our card right there. That's how the card's going to work. So we're going to cut our DSP next. So this is kind of important to get that rainbow effect on our butterflies. So what we will do is we're going to cut this. We need it to be 4 inches long. So these papers are 4 inches long. So we're going to put our butterflies in the top left at 4 inches. And we'll cut that piece off. So this is now going aside. That'll be a nice scrap for you to use later. And this is the piece we'll be working with. So our outer pieces are 1 1/4 by 4. So we will go to, I'm going to put this at 1 1/4 over here. Actually, I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to put, let's do it this way. Let's put the butterflies in the bottom left corner. This will be less confusing, I think. So we put our blue butterflies in the bottom left corner, and we're going to cut at 1 1/4. So we're going to bring this into 1 1/4. Oops, I kind of slipped that a little bit. So 1 1/4 and cut a strip. All right, and then the next strip we're going to cut is going to be it's going to be 2 1/4. So our next strip, we're going to bring this into 2 1/4. And we still have our dark butterflies down here in the bottom left corner. So 2 1/4. And then our last strip, we're going back to the 1 1/4. So we'll bring it over to the 1 1/4. Now you've got your green butterflies down here in the corner. So there we have our 3 pieces, and we still have our nice rainbow effect. Then our middle piece, it will be cut into 2 different pieces. And we want to keep this pattern that we've got going. So we want to actually take our little slice out of the middle. So this we will go into, we'll put the dark butterflies up in the top left corner, and we're going to go to 1 7/8. And we'll cut that. Then we will flip this piece around so our pink butterflies are in the upper left corner, and we'll cut that at 1 7/8. And what that's doing is taking that little slice out of the center. So now, when we line these up, they will go like this. And you can see that our rainbow effect is still there. So these pieces now just get attached to our 2 flaps that we glued down and our center easel flap. So adhere those. And they do have a nice little 1/8" border all the way around. So we've got all 4 of those pieces adhered to our card, and as you can see, we still kept our rainbow effect. So we still go from the dark down to, from the blue to the green to the pink to the orange. So that is the basis of our card. And then we have our focal point of our card, which is our stitched circle and our scalloped circle. We'll be using, as I told you before, these 2 butterflies. I'm using the Itty Bitty Greetings stamp set. And this is a great stamp set because it has teeny tiny little greetings, but there are so many of them. So there's a greeting for everything. If you're one of those people who's always looking for Happy Hanukkah, there's one of those. Easter, trick or treat, I miss you, you're engaged, fabulous at any age, happy graduation, happy Mother's Day. There's just so many greetings in this set. I'm actually going to use the one that says with gratitude, this little guy right here. I'm going to use the Misty Moonlight ink, which is the one that coordinates with the cardstock. If you don't have this, the black will be just fine because our butterfly has black in it. So black would work great, no problem. So with gratitude, I always like to test my stamps. And I'm going to lay my butterfly on there to kind of get an idea of where I want to stamp this. I'm going to put it right there. So there's my stamping. If you watched the first video, I showed you how to make your butterfly float, make the wings so that the wings are up. And the way that you do that is you take your ruler and lay it down right next to the body of the butterfly. And just bend up the wing of the butterfly and burnish it with your finger. And then turn the butterfly around and do the very same thing to the other side of his body. So now you have a butterfly that has floaty wings. On the bottom, you'll have a flat spot. And this is where you'll put your adhesive. So you can put your glue dots, you can put glue. On the other one, we used glue dots, and that was because we were putting it on the acetate, on the window sheet. And you don't really want to, excuse me, you don't really want to use wet glue on the acetate on the window sheet because it will smear and make a mess. I'm going to glue this down first before I put that butterfly on. And then now my butterfly. Now this is important. When we go to put this on our card, we want to make sure that we don't put adhesive on the whole thing. If we do that, our card is not going to open because it needs to not be adhered at the top. So all we're doing with that is we will put our adhesive on the bottom half of the piece, and then you can lay this down. You can center that, and then it should open just like that. Our other little butterfly, that's going to be our stop. So this will move up and down, and so we want a little stop so that it will hold that easel card open. And we'll be using dimensionals on the back of this. So I just put a couple. And then you decide how far you want your card to open. Do you want it to be open just a little? Do you want it to be really tall? And then you'll just put this wherever you want your card to stop. The other thing I did on this card, I did add some embellishments. So I used our basic rhinestone jewels, and I colored them with the Misty Moonlight blend. And you want to use, when you're coloring these are alcohol markers, so they will color your jewels and pearls and other accents that you have. You want to use this fine point. You can see there's a thick line there and a thin line here. The thick line is the brush point. So that's the one that looks like this. And it can get damaged if you're very rough with it, so you want to be careful with that end. So on this end, this is a more of a marker tip. So it's a harder, gosh, can't even get it open. It's a harder tip. So that's the one you would want to use to color your embellishments. And all you need to do is just go around the sides and the top of that rhinestone. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. And I go over it 2 or 3 times. And it dries very, very quickly because it does have alcohol in it. And I went ahead and colored these ahead of time. So now we'll just be picking those up with our take your pick tool or your tweezers or whatever you have. This guy's great if you have it. Let's see. My little guy's kind of pale. I think I'll color him a little bit more. And we'll just put these on our card. I didn't get much color on him, did I? And that's okay, because you can always go back and add more. And there's that. So there's our embellishment. And the other thing that I did was I added Wink of Stella. If you're not familiar with Wink of Stella, it's just a little sparkle paint. Actually, it's clear, but it has sparkle in it, and you can paint it on almost anything. So, like I said before, you can never have too much sparkle in your life. And then I'm going to color this butterfly. I probably should have done him first so that the other one could dry, but it does dry really quickly, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Just spread that on, and I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the camera, the effect that gives. Not sure the lights will pick up that sparkle, but maybe you can see it. So that is our second project from the Butterfly Brilliance class. So if you have any questions, of course, you can find me at bluegrassstamper@gmail.com. You can always find me on my website at www.bluegrassstamper.com. And I hope I'll see you again sometime. Thanks for stopping by.